Thank you. Good evening. So great to be in Cedar Rapids. I bring greetings from the free state of Florida. Some of you are residents of our state. God bless you. Thanks so much. Thanks, Jeff, for the introduction. It's wonderful to be here. We're proud of all the accomplishments in Florida. We've worked very hard. And, you know, there'll be people that will come up to me occasionally saying, how come other Republicans don't just follow or don't do similar stuff to what you do? And I said, there are Republicans that are doing it. They're like, where? And I said, Iowa is doing it. And part of the reason I know that is because I run into people in Florida, Naples, Fort Myers, some of you, and they will tell me, if they're from Illinois, I mean, you can sense the bitterness of how Illinois is governed. They're happy to be in Florida, but they are frustrated. Same with during the people fleeing Minnesota lockdowns and Michigan lockdowns during COVID. But when I run into Iowans in like Southwest Florida, they're happy. They're happy with Florida, but they're also happy with what's going on in Iowa, because I think that between your legislature and your governor, you've got one of the best Republican teams in the entire country with what they've been able to accomplish. And so I pointed this out for a long time, and when I was here in March, someone had written something about, hey, look at all that Iowa's doing. You know, they are the Florida of the Midwest. And, you know, I started watching more of what they did during this legislative session. I'm like, man, they've done an awful lot. Maybe it's just that Florida is the Iowa of the Southeast. I don't know. But I think both Florida and Iowa and what we've been able to accomplish should give people around this country a little bit of hope. Because you see a lot of the things that are going wrong. We can look at the disaster at the southern border. We can see the government-induced inflation that's harmed tens of millions of people over the last couple of years. We can see Biden floundering around, doing whatever it is he does on a daily basis. And we also can see and be frustrated with the losses that Republicans have suffered at the ballot box over these last many years. So there is a lot of people that are very pessimistic, and I understand that. But I think what Iowa and Florida shows is it can be done. If you are somebody that's willing to lead, if you're willing to stand for our shared principles, and you put those into effect and you deliver results for people, the people out there, they'll walk over hot coals barefoot to come vote for you. They just want to know you care about them. They want to know you'll stand up for them, and they want to see you deliver results for them. And Iowa and Florida are both the same in the sense that it's not like we always have voted Republican our state's history. Obama won both Florida and Iowa twice when he was running for president. And when I got elected governor in 2018, it was by 32,000 votes. It wasn't actually anything out of the ordinary. Most of the races from the president to the governor for the previous 10 years were one-point races. And Florida kind of had a delicate political balance. And actually, a lot of people told me when I got in, hey, it's very evenly divided. Don't rock this boat because you may end up on the other side if there's changes. And I understood that advice, but, you know, I rejected that advice. I'm not just going to sit there like a potted plant. I'm going to go on offense. And that's what we did. And we worked really hard. Part of the reason I think we've been able to do well in Florida is I don't look at polls to tell me what to do. You know, my view is that a leader doesn't put their finger in the wind and try to see which way the wind's blowing. The leader should have the fortitude to chart a vision, to execute the vision, and deliver results. And guess what happens when you do that? The polls will change in your direction anyways. And so that was our philosophy going in, and we were able to accomplish a lot. And so fast forward 4 years later, we didn't win by 32,000 votes. We won by over 1.5 million votes in the state of Florida, the biggest landslide in Republican Party history in our state. And we did it not just by getting Republicans. And as much as I wish that a majority of this country were Republicans, that is not the case. So you want to win the Republican, of course, but you also got to win independents. You got to win some Democrats. And so what we were able to do in Florida, we won independent voters by 18 percentage points. We won over 60% of the Hispanic vote in the state of Florida. We understand, we do well in rural areas and in Florida. If you look at, I got 90+% in some of these rural counties. I used to think like Philadelphia, they'd get 90%. I'm like, that's got to be fraud. How can you get 90%? I was getting 90% in some of our rural. And I can tell you, we have secure elections in Florida. So we do great in rural. We did really good. We do sometimes not as good in the suburbs, although we did really well in my election. But I think one of the things we showed that we could do, we won big in some urban areas. Our biggest county, Miami-Dade, 2.8 million people, 70% Hispanic. Hillary Clinton won that county in 2016 by 30%. We were able to not only win the county, we won the county by double digits, taking this message to the heart of urban Florida. In politics is a team sport. It's not just about you running. You got to work to get a whole team elected, and I'm happy to say we were able to do that. Florida now has super majorities in our Florida legislature for the biggest majorities we've ever had in the state's history. We also help elect 29 conservative school board members to school districts throughout the state of Florida. Very important. And for the first time since the Civil War era, there is not one single solitary Democrat elected to statewide office in the Sunshine State. That's what you call winning. And none of those results would have been possible had it not been for us that when the world lost its mind during COVID, when common sense suddenly became an uncommon virtue, our state of Florida stood as a refuge of sanity, as a citadel of freedom for people, not just in our state, around these United States, and even around the world. We refused to let our state descend into some type of Faucian dystopia where people's livelihoods were ruined and their freedoms were curtailed. No, we chose freedom over Fauciism, and we're better off for having done that. And it is important to point out that when I was making these decisions, when your governor was making decisions, she and I were one of the only ones in the country saying kids need to be in school. You shouldn't lock kids out of school. She took flack. I took flack from all over, from the corporate press, from the left, from the bureaucracy. Even some Republicans were attacking me, and I remember people telling me, supporters like, man, you got to do something different because you are getting filleted, and you're not going to be long for this world politically if you keep on that course. But, the leader's job is to put the interests of the people he represents before his own, and I cared more about protecting the jobs of Floridians than I did about protecting my own. I didn't know what would happen politically, but you got to do the right thing. And so we were having to do that because we were going against the grain of what they were saying about lockdowns, about masks, about all the different things, schools. But we can sit here today and say the elites were wrong about almost everything regarding COVID. They were wrong about lockdowns. They were wrong about forced masking. They were wrong about school closures. They were wrong to deny the existence of natural immunity. They were wrong to say you were a conspiracy theorist if you said COVID started in the Wuhan lab. And so we're now in a situation where some people are trying to rewrite history. They're trying to act like, they didn't really support this or that. And I can tell you this, Fauciism was wrong. Fauciism was destructive, and we can never let anything like that happen to this country again. I'm glad to be in Iowa because you guys have a lot of fiscal common sense with how you manage your budget. We do too in the state of Florida. Our budget, even though we have 3 million more people than New York State, Our budget is half the size of New York State budget. Yet we have better roads, better services, better infrastructure, higher performing education. Where is this money going that they're taxing people with? I can tell you they're causing more people to move to my state, which, oh, by the way, we don't have a state income tax in Florida. You guys should try it sometime. It works. I know your governor's trying to get there, and maybe she will. But the difference between fiscally conservative management and what's been going on in Washington, between the Fed printing trillions and trillions of dollars over the last few years, Biden printing and spending, borrowing and spending trillions in dollars, they induced the worst inflation we've had in 40 years. That has been an invisible tax on every single American family, seniors on fixed incomes, parents with children. It's made life more difficult for people. It's harder to be enjoying a middle-class lifestyle as a result of Biden's policies. And he wants to double down on it. He wants to make your energy more expensive. He wants to make all of these different things more difficult for you. And so we clearly see the difference between good management and bad management. I can tell you the states that have Biden policies, those people are moving to my state of Florida to get away from those policies. And I know some of you who have places in Florida, you run into the people who leave from New York and New Jersey and leave from Illinois. You know, I have to watch what goes on in these other states because it affects my state. When this guy gets elected mayor of Chicago, left of the left, Naples real estate is now going up again because people are fleeing. That's just what happens. I mean, it's crazy. It's also, but one of the reasons why this is happening, they've turned their back on law and order in places like Chicago. You don't defund police. You support the police. You don't allow rioting and looting and mob violence. You hold those people accountable. You don't eliminate cash bail and turn them right back loose so they can commit more crimes. You don't do jailbreak and let people get out of prison early who are dangerous. And for heaven's sakes, you don't elect prosecutors, usually funded by people like George Soros. You don't elect prosecutors that get into office and say they are not going to enforce laws they disagree with and that they are going to put the criminal's interest ahead of the victim's interest. I can tell you this. In Florida, we had a prosecutor that was funded by Soros. He said there were laws that he was going to decline to enforce that our legislature had enacted. And so I removed him from his post. He is gone. We need accountability in this country. We also need accountability for what's going on at our southern border. I could tell you this. Someone said, well, what would you do? I would shut the border down immediately. You cannot have hundreds of thousands of people lined up at the border coming in illegally. How much fentanyl has the Mexican cartels brought across the border since Biden's been president? We have tens of thousands of people that are dying because of fentanyl overdose, not just in border communities, in every community in this country. And I can tell you because I console mothers in the state of Florida who have lost some of their kids to fentanyl overdose. You have criminal aliens pouring in, and they are committing crimes in the United States. There are even people that are on our own government's terrorist watch list that are coming in into our country. So I think we need strong immigration policies. We are not citizens of the world. We are American citizens. That means something. Our sovereignty should mean something. And our border should reflect that sovereignty. In Florida, we've leaned in on the issue of fighting back against illegal immigration. We banned sanctuary cities in Florida my first year as governor. We sued Biden and won against his catch and release policies at the southern border. We're also involved in maritime interdictions of illegal aliens because we have people try to run boats from places like Haiti. Coast Guard stops most of them, but they don't stop all of them. So we've surged Florida resources to interdict boats. And since August alone, we, working with the Coast Guard, have been able to repatriate over 12,000 illegal aliens back to places like Haiti. And guess what happens? If they know that they will get captured and sent back, they stop coming because they know it's not going to work. So the boats that were coming to Florida have been reduced to a trickle because they know it's not effective. If you made that clear at the southern border that you come, you're not going to just get let in for a court date 3 years from now, people will stop showing up in those types of numbers. And the thing is, the thing about it is, a lot of the media, they've tried to ignore this. I mean, I think Fox does it and some others, but like legacy media usually does not want to talk about this. In fact, the only time I really saw them interested in this subject was when we sent 50 illegal aliens to beautiful Martha's Vineyard. Then they got really upset about that. They got them off the island very quickly, I know that. But I do think that you're never going to fully solve the problem unless you construct a wall along the southern border. I think that needs to be done, and I support doing it. What I've offered Biden is this. We had Hurricane Ian come through Southwest Florida. Some of you know. Some of you had property that was impacted. That monster storm, it knocked out a bridge going from the mainland to Pine Island, and it severed the causeway going to Sanibel Island in 3 different places. And the residents there were being told, you're out of luck for 6 months. And these were not state bridges or anything, so we weren't saying at the state level they were being told. So they came and they said, Governor, you got to help us. There's no way we can go 6 months without being able to access. And I was like, all right, I'll help you. So I got my guys together and I said, listen, no bureaucracy, no red tape, and no excuses. I want this stuff built. And so we took over the Pine Island Bridge project, and instead of taking 3 months, we reconstructed the bridge in 3 days, and then we did Sanibel 2 weeks later. Now, I just raised that because I'm willing to send those Florida guys to the southern border to build the border wall. Biden's just got to give us the word. I'll go do it. I'll knock it out. So we're also leading in Florida on ensuring that the purpose of our school system is educating our kids, not indoctrinating our kids. We believe in parents' rights, that parents have the fundamental role of directing the education and the upbringing of their kids. And that means you as a parent in our school system have the right to know what curriculum is being used in your kid's school. And so we've done the curriculum transparency in Florida. Parents have objected to things like pornography in the schools. How could you use tax dollars to put books like that in the schools? And so the media said, oh, they're trying to ban books. They're not ban books. You as adults can get what you want in Florida, but that doesn't mean it's appropriate for an elementary school or a middle school classroom. And so we did a press conference to expose what we called the book ban hoax. And so before I had the parents talk at the press conference we just played a video with the images that were objected to and some of the stories or text that were objected to. And the news cameras cut their feed because they said it was too graphic. And I'm just thinking to myself, if it's too graphic for the 6 o'clock news, how is it appropriate for a 10-year-old school child? It is not. Florida has eliminated toxic ideologies like critical race theory from our K through 12 schools. We're not teaching kids to hate this country or to hate each other with our people's tax dollars. No, we're putting a renewed and I think long neglected emphasis on American civics, on teaching kids about the Constitution, on teaching them what it means to be an American, on teaching them what the Bill of Rights and all these different ideas mean. And we even teach kids 1 day a year we set aside to teach our school kids about the evils of communism and Marxism and Leninism. We're telling the truth to people, and that's what we need to do. So we say that this woke mind virus that's been unleashed in our society that is infecting education, it's infecting corporate America with their activism, trying to pursue a left-wing agenda, It's really, I think, emanating some of the left-wing policies we see with crime and all these other things. You know, we say very simply in Florida, we will fight the woke in the schools. We will fight the woke in the legislature. We will fight the woke in corporate America. We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. Our state is where woke goes to die. So here's, I think, where we are going forward. You see the model of Iowa, you see the model of Florida, you've seen great success. You've seen jurisdictions governed by leftist politicians fail in every corner of this country, and we see an administration pursuing leftist policies in D.C. that is failing the American people across the board. But 2024 is a huge inflection point for this country. If the Democrats are able to win, if they are able to sweep the House and the Senate and win the White House again, they are going to try to pack the U.S. Supreme Court. They are going to try to abolish the Electoral College. They are going to try to make Washington, D.C. a state, and they are going to try to eliminate voter ID in every state in this country and mandate ballot harvesting in every state in this country. And that's not an agenda that's speaking to people's kitchen table concerns. That's an agenda that's seeking to make the conservative half of the country second-class citizens. So the stakes are high, and at the end of the day, there is no substitute for victory. The time for excuses is over. If you do not win, then you do not have the ability to get any of the changes done that we need to save our country. And I used to think that freedom was just something that we would always have. I don't think I appreciated how fragile it really is, even in our country, until these last few years when we saw what happened with COVID and all these other things that have been going on. But you know, our founding fathers understood the fragility of freedom. When they went to frame the Constitution in Philadelphia, they had studied the history of every republic and the history of mankind because they wanted to draw lessons to inform their understanding so that they could try to create a great constitution for this new nation. And they noticed that there was really only one thing that all these republics had in common, and it was this. Every single one of them had failed. And so they believed that it fell to the United States of America to determine once and for all, can people really govern themselves? Can you have a society based on the idea that our rights come from our creator, not from our government? Can you have a country based on the idea of the rule of law, not the rule of individual men? Or was mankind forever destined to live under various forms of despotism? And they firmly believed that this country would be the one that would ultimately answer that question. But they also understood they could make the best constitution in the world. They could talk about having the best Declaration of Independence in the world. None of that stuff runs on autopilot. They understood that each generation of Americans would be called upon to defend freedom and defend our way of life. And so that's where we find ourselves here today. I think if we make this election about a referendum on Joe Biden and his failed policies, and we provide a positive alternative to take America in the new direction, I think Republicans will win across the board. If the election's about anything else, it's about distractions, side issues, all these other things. If we allow Biden to just sit in his basement again and not have to be held accountable, well, then I think the Democrats are likely to seize that power that we know they will abuse. So the stakes are very high, and I can tell you this, we're proud of what we've done in Florida. We're proud of what you have done in Iowa, but I have only begun to fight. So thank you all. God bless you. Appreciate it. And you got the best yet to come because we're going to get the First Lady up here. You're going to... Okay.
Okay. Just was saying, this is a very tough act to follow. To be sitting in between Jeff and the governor, I don't know about this.
That is a superior inferior in terms of clout, I can tell you that. First of all, welcome. Welcome, Madam First Lady. It's an absolute honor.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here.
I'm going to get right to the questions.
Okay.
And first of all, and I'll start with a question for your terrific wife and First Lady of Florida. I took the time to look through your bio in great detail. And I want to ask you about one of your initiatives, but I want to ask you first, I want to jump right into it. I was going to ask this question to Governor DeSantis.
Okay.
But we're talking to a room full of Iowans here that are, quite frankly, impressed with your husband. And I know when they get to know you, they're going to be impressed with the team. What would you like the folks here tonight to know about Ron DeSantis?
Question. I mean, you know, what you see about him standing behind the podium is the fighter, the one who held the line in defense of people's rights, their liberties, and their happiness. Like, that is the guy. I mean, he is exactly what you see behind the podium as he is at home. He's also a father of 3 kids. So we have a 6, 5, and a 3-year-old. And so, by the way, it's very crazy in the DeSantis household. I'm not going to lie. When he gets home, don't think for a second that he goes right to bed. I hand 3 small kids over to him, and I go to bed. So, it's true. It's kind of funny because sometimes he'll be gone for a long day and he's traveling all over the place, and, you know, he'll bring back little sweet treats. And so when he gets home sometimes at 8:30, and moms know this, right? He's giving the 6-year-old a sweet treat at 8:30 at night as we're starting the bedtime routine, and then we get the sugar high. But, you know, but he's a good dad. He's a good person. He's in it for the right reasons. He's fighting for our children just as much as he's fighting for your families. I mean, when I look at the governor, Ron, and I look at his story, in my opinion, he's really the embodiment of the American dream and everything that we are fighting to preserve for everybody across this country, and particularly in Florida currently. And that is somebody who came from literally nothing, who worked his way through school, who nobody really thought had a chance as far as he didn't have any connections and he didn't have a lot of money, but he was able, through baseball and hard work and grit and perseverance, to work his way through Yale University and then ultimately going to Harvard Law School. But it was after that I think his story is very special, because there was a lot of opportunities at that point in time for him to do a lot of great things. There's a lot of offers to probably make some money. But he wanted to serve his country in the United States Navy because that was the right thing to do. He wanted to give back to the country that had given him so much, and that was the opportunity to be able to succeed. A guy from Dunedin being able to go through these institutions. Well, when he deployed to Iraq in 2007, he was part of a Navy SEAL Team command staff. He earns the Bronze Star for meritorious service. He was over with SEAL Team 1, helping with the operations over there. And I think got, you know, a perspective of what some of our war fighters are fighting on the ground. You know, my sister is an Air Force pilot, and so is my brother-in-law. And just seeing that firsthand, I think, gave a lot of just context and perspective on life, and also gave him, I think, the push to keep fighting. And so he ultimately ran for Congress. He was 2 terms up there. Then there was an opportunity for him to run for governor, in which he did. And again, nobody really said he had a chance in the very beginning, but he worked hard and he persevered, and he was able to then command the 3rd largest state in the country, and now the 13th largest economy in the world. And I tell you all of this. And then Florida, just like Iowa, stood as the bastion of freedom to the United States and to the world, that the idea of America still lives, and it lives well. And you know what? It was the American dream from the very beginning, from the kid in Dunedin, born in Jacksonville, but grew up in Dunedin, who was able to excel to be the helm of the 13th largest economy in the world, that held the line for your rights, my children's rights. That's who this guy is, and only in America does that happen, and I'm so proud.
Conversation with these two. I don't know what I'm going to have.
No, I was looking, though. I was.
Speaking of fighters, I would be remiss if I didn't say that the First Lady of Florida is also a cancer survivor. In your book, you write, it's a great story. You got to share it with the group about meeting the love of your life, Disney World. Fellowship, we got to hear about this.
So, you know, things just happen in life, right? I mean, where would I have lived? If I wasn't here, what would have happened this? And so for me, the number one thing about kind of what if would have happened, and it would have been worse for me if this didn't happen, happened was I was a lieutenant junior grade in the Navy, stationed in Naval Station Mayport, Florida, which is in northeastern Florida, great base. And I just happened to mosey over to a golf driving range at the University of North Florida to just hit some golf balls. I was trying to get into it. I was a broken down baseball player, all through college, and I wanted to start doing other stuff, and so we did that. So I'm there, and right in front of me, there was like an empty bay, and then someone up there, and it was this one. And she was very pretty, whacking balls, not really well, although she is really good, but she wasn't whacking well that day. And so, but there were balls between us that someone had left, like sometimes people leave a bucket. So she's looking over her shoulder. I thought she was checking me out. She was just looking where those balls, if I was going to take the balls. And so I figured, you know what? I'm not, to me, it's like, you're never going to hit a ball if you don't take a swing at it, right? So I'm going, so we just started talking. I offered her the balls to hit, and then, we went afterwards, and then just that was kind of, the rest was history. We dated, that was probably about 2006. We dated for a while. I got mobilized with the Iraq and all that stuff. And so I just told myself, look, if I make it through Iraq, I'm going to propose and make sure I get that done. So we did that. As soon as I got back, no problem. And then my view on the wedding is like, look, I'm low maintenance. I don't have any, like, you do what you want, right? And so she was kind of just going through that about what she was going to do. She comes to me one day, she said, I was talking to my parents, what do you think about getting married at Disney World? I'm like, Disney World with like Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse? What is it? Actually, they have a beautiful wedding chapel. They have all this other stuff. And so, I told her, yes, it's your day, all this stuff, but no Mickey or Donald Duck in the line. We all want a normal wedding, and we did it. It was great. But, this is what, 13, 14 years ago. Who would have thought that when we're leaving Disney World as newlyweds, that, a decade and a half later, we'd be staring them down over a fundamental fight about, what is appropriate for our kids, and what type of corporate ethos do you have regarding kids? And I think they've gone in a very bad direction. And, is it appropriate for one entity in a society to be exempt from the rules that everybody else has to follow? And so that's pretty much what they would do. So, we fought back on that when they tried to tank our parents' rights legislation, and it was the right thing to do. And at the end of the day, it's like when you're in a position like mine, people are saying, oh, if Disney weighs in against this, it is over with this bill to say, we didn't want the sexuality and the gender ideology in the schools, particularly the elementary schools. It's over because they get everything they want in Florida and have for 50, 60 years. And honestly, that's true until now, because we run the state on behalf of the best interest of the people. We don't defer to a woke company based in Burbank, California. That's just the way it is.
Put it this way, Jeff, we have not been back.
Well, from my perspective on my perch here in Iowa, I would say it's Ron DeSantis 1, Donald Duck 0.
What have we done in Florida? We have laid waste to leftism in Florida. It is dead in the state of Florida because of what we've been able to accomplish. They see that. They understand that we represent a threat to their leftist agenda and leftist ideology. So I take it in stride. I also know, like, Republicans, they know the media.
A Russian man claiming to hold top-level secrets about Russian advanced bombers has just turned up at the U.S. southern border, seeking asylum. The man claims to have been an engineer at a production facility over in the city of Kazan, and he says that he possesses top-secret information about the White Swan Tu-160, which is the most advanced bomber in the Russian arsenal. U.S. border officials, they interviewed the man, and they determined that his story was in fact credible and eventually passed him off to the FBI, who are still in the process of interrogating him right now. However, analysts have pointed out that the fact that the story was even leaked to the public is an indication that perhaps the American government is encouraging other Russians who also hold top-level secrets to also escape to America. And if you thought that was interesting, well then you should click on that button below this video and check out Epic TV, one of the best no-censorship video platforms on the internet.